You don't get to spiral. You don't get to shut down. And you definitely don't get to bring that anxiety home. But meanwhile, internally, your nervous system is on fire. You try to breathe because you've heard this crazy JR guy talk about the benefits of breath work. So you do it. And it works. Sometimes. Other times, it doesn't. And that's where most high-performing men get frustrated with this whole idea of breath work.
This is Coming Up Clutch with JR, helping the world's best in sports, entertainment, and business make winning a lifestyle.
What's up? It's JR, and
It's time for the 5-minute drill.
I call this segment of the show the 5-minute drill because I give you a strategy that will take no longer than 5 minutes to implement. This is a proven strategy to help you come up clutch more often in at least one area of your life, leading you to more wins and positioning you to maximize your success and significance. I'm about helping you make winning a lifestyle, not a one-time thing. So what happens when you have a ton going on in life all at once? Work, the house, your spouse, your kids, your health, and everybody is looking to you for stability. You have a lot of people counting on you. What do? You don't get to spiral, you don't get to shut down, and you definitely don't get to bring that anxiety home. But meanwhile, internally, your nervous system is on fire. You try to breathe because you've heard this crazy JR guy talk about the benefits of breath work. So you do it and it works sometimes. Other times it doesn't. And that's where most high-performing men get frustrated with this whole idea of breath work. Perhaps you're there too, because the truth is when your nervous system is out of whack, you want relief now. You want to stop feeling that anxiety. You know, the pressure, the knots in your stomach, the elevated heart rate, right? So look, here's my goal for you today. By the end of this episode, you'll be able to regulate your nervous system in under 5 minutes, especially when your responsibility is high and your anxiety is elevated. This is not about suppressing it. This is not about ignoring it. This is about regulating it. Because living in this constant state of anxiety absolutely sucks. And you can't operate at your best with it just leeching onto you. You know it, I know it. And real quick, if you're a family guy listening to this today and you've been crushing it in your career, but you feel like your wife and kids are getting the leftovers, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's an issue. And it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you don't care. It's because you have invisible opponents just getting in your way. And like I tell my clients, you can't fight what you can't see. So that's why I created the Invisible 4 assessment. It's fast, it's free, and it'll expose what's blocking you from bringing your best home. So if you're serious about being elite in every area of your life, if you want to bring your best home, then take the assessment. Face your Invisible 4. It takes less than 3 minutes. And it may just be the aha you needed to get to your next level. So just go to jamesreed.com/assessment to take it. Trust me, you won't regret it. And before I forget, if you're empowered by the show and learning something, make sure you follow us on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss out when we drop new episodes. Just hit that purple plus on the top right-hand corner of the podcast app. When you do that, this podcast has the chance to get in the hands of more people that need it. So help someone out today. Make sure you're following the show. And also, speaking of helping someone out, share today's episode. Play that hero to your family, friends, and teammates by giving them the link to this or sending them to comingupclutch.com. And when you go and post about this episode on social, make sure to tag me. All right, 5-minute drill. Let's get it. So this drill was born out of a real conversation that, of course, a real conversation, JR. You don't have fake conversations. Well, I guess it is AI world these days, so anything could be fake. But this particular drill came straight out of a real conversation that I had with a guy during a strategy and mentorship session inside the Clutch Club. One of my guys, he reached out and he said, JR, I'm beyond overwhelmed. I'm sorry, I just haven't been as active in the group because my anxiety has been paralyzing me at times. New house issues, pregnant wife, my daughter, business partnership, health stuff. I just feel anxious all the time, man. I try to breathe, but it doesn't always work. What else could I do? That's what he said. What else could I do, JR? I mean, that's some honesty right there for my guy, right? I mean, here's the reality. This is from a guy who's always preaching breath work right here. You know, yours truly. Breathing alone, it isn't enough. Because if your mind is still rehearsing things like fear and just, what if? Well, your body won't fully relax. So with this particular member, I shared a subtle nuance to this whole breathwork world. And that nuance changed everything for him, gave him much needed relief, and he got his relief quickly. I'm going to share that nuance because it's obviously today's 5-minute drill, but it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. So let me zoom out for a minute here. When your responsibility rises, your sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, it activates. That's your mobilization system here. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for safety or threat. And when it senses overload, it just tightens up your entire system. Again, this is not weakness. It's not because you're weak. It's just our biology. But here's the problem. When your nervous system is chronically activated, 24/7, that can transform into chronic anxiety. But here's some good news. According to the research from UCLA's Matthew Lieberman, simply labeling what you're feeling can help you regulate your nervous system. In other words, if you've been listening to my show, I like to call this, name it to tame it. Well, that's step one of this drill. I've decided to name this drill on the fly, the reliable reset, because this has become my go-to reliable strategy for my clients and me. And this is what I shared with that particular Clutch Club member that I shared and mentioned earlier. So step one is write down, let's name it. Write down 1 to 2 primary negatives. What are those 1 to 2 dominant negative thoughts or beliefs or stressors that you're experiencing? Some examples could be like, what if this deal falls through? Or, what if I don't get this done in time? Or what if I don't come through? Why do we do this step? It's not to just, overload yourself with negatives and make the situation worse. We do this because labeling like this reduces, I'm going to get nerdy here for a second. I'll get you 4th grade English here. But it reduces your limbic activation and increases your prefrontal cortex engagement. And again, plain English, it's just getting the negatives out and writing them down. By doing that, it just gives your thinking brain this sense of, I can manage this. So that's step one. Step two, we're going to identify what state you want. So we're getting the negatives out. Now let's focus on what you want, those positives. So examples here could be calm or just I just want to feel clear here, or steady or focused or even faithful. This matters because our brains are predictive. According to Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, emotions are constructed based on prediction and meaning. So when you define the state that you want, you're essentially giving your brain a target. And our brain loves him some targets. High performers, we can't, and just elite people in general, we can't just eliminate negativity. We have to replace it with intention. Having this target is setting your intention. Again, so many people want to talk about, I'm going to be more intentional. Well, these are the little things, these are the nuances that help you set your intentions. My intention is going to be, I'm going to pursue calm, or I'm going to pursue focus here, or I'm going to pursue high levels of faith in this moment. All right, so that's step two. Step three, and this is where the rubber hits the road. Now that we've gotten the bad stuff out of our head And we have identified the good stuff that we want. As one of my mentors, Greg Warburton, says, it's time to soak in the good stuff. Well, how do we do that in this particular drill? It's through breath work and visualization. We're not stopping at breath work. We're not even starting with breath work in this drill, as you know, from the first 2 steps. This is the nuance I was referring to earlier with my member. I call it breath work plus. So step 3 is doing at least 10 rounds of 4x8 nasal breathing plus a visualization. So here's how this goes. You'll close your eyes. You'll inhale for 4 seconds through your nose. And then you'll exhale for 8 seconds through your nose. Again, when we lengthen our exhales, when the exhales are longer than our inhales, preferably double in this case, we're sending a signal to the brain, it's time to downregulate. We're downregulating our nervous system here. Okay, so you'll do that 4x8 for at least 10 rounds. So let me just explain, because this has come up in keynotes I've given and talks and trainings about nasal breathing and why we're doing these cadences and stuff like that. I already explained to you why we double the exhale, but why all through the nose? Well, the research shows that nasal breathing increases nitric oxide production. It also improves oxygen efficiency in your system, and it enhances vagal tone. Okay, so what us nerds really mean when we say vagal tone is basically nasal breathing makes your body better at calming itself down. It trains your nervous system to relax faster. Plus, when you're breathing in through your nose and keeping that mouth closed, you're actually breathing in filtered air. I mean, this is how our body's designed to work here. All right, and you're also keeping this. See, I'm going down the rabbit hole of breath work, but when you are nasal breathing, there's a better chance that your carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange is going to be more evenly balanced. We get in trouble with that when we breathe through our mouth. Okay, why do you think when we're running or we're doing something, exerting a lot of energy, we have to open our mouth because our metabolic rate is higher and our body's starving for more? We open our mouth. Okay, all right, back to the focus here. Stop going down the nerd train, JR. All right, so look, I use this analogy a lot, okay, because again, nasal breathing helps your nervous system relax faster, calms its, just sends a signal, I'm calming down. But I use this analogy a lot. I think of your nervous system like a car. So you got the gas pedal, you got the brake pedal. Most high performers are great at hitting the gas, including myself. All right. So then the vagus nerve is that brake. When we strengthen it, we just make the brake work better. Okay. But why longer exhales? Again, extended exhalation, it activates that parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, the calming branch, if you will. Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's one of my favorite podcasts out there, Huberman Lab podcast, he explains that the longer exhales are it's one of the fastest ways to downshift our stress states. You notice too, I said, close your eyes. Well, why do we close our eyes? It reduces visual input and stimulation by up to 80%, which, again, nerdy language first, fourth grade English second. When we do that, we're decreasing our cortical load and allowing internal regulation to dominate, meaning when you close your eyes, your brain has less to deal with. That's all that means. It makes it easier for your body to calm down. And another way to look at it is when your eyes are open, your brain is constantly scanning. Movement and light and people and problems. When you close them, you cut the noise. Less noise, easier to settle down. Imagine trying to calm down in the middle of Times Square. Now imagine calming down in a quiet room. I mean, it's a no-brainer here, right? Closing your eyes is like stepping into that quiet room. Now here's the nuance. There's a nuance within the nuance. As you inhale, visualize inhaling the good state you identified in step 2. As you exhale, visualize releasing the negativity, the negatives that you wrote down in step 1. So as you can see here, we're pairing breath with cognitive reframing and imagery. Mental imagery and visualization, I mean, I say this pretty much at the end of every 5-minute drill. it activates many of the same neural networks and pathways as real life experience. And from all my study and research in the sports psychology space, I've learned that visualization primes our nervous system for just our state shifts. So, little perspective shift for you. You're not just breathing, you're retraining your state of being. That's a big shift in perspective. Now, the last step here is we're going to anchor this whole reliable reset strategy to your main meals. Okay, so think breakfast, think lunch, think dinner. Why before meals, JR? Because your gut and your brain are directly connected to that vagus nerve. Okay, roughly 90% of your vagal fibers run from your gut to your brain. So if you regulate your nervous system before eating, you improve your digestive tone and reduce stress-driven inflammation, which so many of us are running around with inflammation these days. Essentially, what you're telling your body is, hey, you know what? We're safe. It's time to rest, restore, and digest this food I'm about to eat. So anchoring it to your meals removes that decision fatigue. So you don't need another task. You just attach it to something you already do. This is simple behavior design. You don't need more discipline. You just need better behavior design. This is how I'm helping you do that. Now, before we land the plane, I just want to make the biblical connection to this conversation and really this topic of anxiety as a whole. One of my favorite verses, you may have heard it, Philippians 4, 6, and 7. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Notice what this says. Peace will guard your heart and mind. I know I'm a nerd here when it comes to this stuff, but that's regulation language to me. Peace isn't passive. It's protective. The drill I just gave you, coupled with some prayer, that's opening the door to peace and thus protecting your mind, your heart, and your body from anxiety. And if you've been listening to my show, you know that David is one of my favorite characters in the Bible. By the way, loved the animated movie they made about David that we saw over the holidays. Before facing Goliath, everyone was counting on David because no one else wanted to fight him. Israel was paralyzed. Saul was just this unstable jerk. That whole army was just afraid. But David, he didn't deny this threat from all, his enemies and his people's enemies. He just regulated his perspective. He remembered past victories. He declared truth. He stepped forward with steadiness. That's regulation under a huge amount of responsibility, which we all have our own piles of responsibility, right? I'm sharing all this to say, don't buy into the myth that strong leaders, they don't feel anxious. We feel it all right, don't we? The truth, strong leaders regulate anxiety. Because as you and I both know, the people counting on you, they don't need a tense version of you. They need a steady one. And now you have a drill to help you regulate your anxiety and be that steady leader in your career, in your workplace, and at home. All right, so just to recap, how to execute the reliable reset, as I'm calling it. Step 1, write down those 1 to 2 primary negatives. What are those 1 to 2 dominant negative thoughts or beliefs or stressors that you're experiencing? Step 2, identify the state you want. Step 3, doing at least 10 rounds of 4x8 nasal breathing plus visualization. Again, call it breathwork plus. Close your eyes, inhale for 4, exhale for 8, all through your nose. And remember, as you inhale, visualize inhaling that good state you identified. And step 2, and as you exhale, visualize releasing the negativity you wrote down in step 1. This is you pairing your breath with cognitive reframing and imagery. Exactly why I call this breathwork plus. You're not just breathing. Again, you're retraining your state of being. And that last step, anchor this reliable reset strategy to your main meals. That's it. 4 steps, 5 minutes. But that's this week's 5-minute drill. This particular drill I like to show you how it's changed my life and my clients' lives. I mean, it changed how I showed up, especially transitioning from work to home, especially after a rough work day. Less reactive, more responsive, more steady leadership from yours truly when I started executing this consistently. And that's what my Clutch Club member experienced too, that I shared about earlier. He didn't need more effort. He didn't need a new breathwork protocol. He just needed a better regulation of his nervous system in that moment. All right, so to get you momentum with this drill, my encouragement to you right after this episode, take those 30 to 60 seconds to visualize yourself executing the drill. See yourself maybe tomorrow morning before breakfast. You write down that one stressor, you identify the calm you want, you do the 10 rounds of 4x8 with visualization, and then you open your eyes and you're steady. You see your wife, you see your kids, you see your team. You're grounded, you're clear, you're dangerous. In a good way, that is. Lock that in before the day gets away from you. Like I mentioned before today's episode, if you're a family guy who's serious about being elite in every area of your life, which if you got it to the end of this episode, that's you. If you're that guy who wants to bring his best home more consistently, then head on over to jamesreed.com/assessment to take my Invisible 4 assessment. That's jamesreed.com/assessment. Till then, don't forget, winning isn't a result. It's a lifestyle, so keep pursuing that life of champions.
This episode is over. Get more No BS content to help you master your mind, body, and relationships by hitting subscribe. This is Coming Up Clutch with JR. Thanks for listening.